Welcome back to episode 7 of Why Do I Do That? So today's question is, I read this question out actually to a couple of my friends and they all said, ooh, interesting one. And this one is, why can't I remember my childhood? And it's a very complex question. I'm going to break it down into 4 parts for you because it's a little bit complicated. So the first part is, oftentimes when people say I can't remember any of my childhood, they actually can. And they actually don't realize how much you're supposed to recall. So that's always a good place to start. You're actually only supposed to have really, ideally, one memory from each year of life, or a couple of memories from each year of your life. And you should be able to put them into sequential order. You should be able to be like, yeah, I remember in prep and I was living at this house, and then in grade 1 we moved to this house, or I was friends with these kids, and then in grade 2 around that time, this happened, and you can sort of put them into sequential order and you have a few from each year. The rest of the memories are going to just be recalled upon relevance. So someone might be like, oh, I'm going to Luna Park on the weekend, and you go, oh, I went to Luna Park when I was 9. Oh, and we did this and we did that. And it brings it back because it's relevant to the conversation that you're having, but it's not just like sitting there ready to go all the time. So that's kind of like a rundown of what it should look like. How to know, because underlying this question of why can't I remember my childhood is this. A lot of people come to me with questions about repressed memory because this is my personal background. So a lot of people are trying to figure out, do they have repressed memories? Is there things that they're not remembering? So the way to, I guess, pinpoint whether you might potentially have some repressed memory is you will have big gaps in your childhood or in your memory. So you might be like, I have a memory from when I was 3 and I remember sort of living here when I was 4, and then I don't have any memories until I'm 12. There is a huge black period of I don't actually know where I lived or who I was friends with, or it's just this blackout period. That is a pretty clear indication that you have some repressed memories through that period of time. So what also happens is, if you do have some repressed memories, you'll have what I like to call the edge of a memory. And there's no like technical way to explain this, but what it feels like, and people who have come to me with repressed memories have similar experiences, is the edge of a memory is a memory that comes up all the time. And you don't know why it comes up because you feel like you only have the edge of it. It's like the camera is only just in focus on one little bit and the rest of it's a little bit blurry. This is what I call the edge of a memory. And what this often is if you're just kind of doing the dishes and all of a sudden you think about this one day when you were, in the room with your friend, and it just keeps popping up and you remember the ceiling fan and your friend, or just a couple of details, but you don't know why you keep thinking about it. That is almost always a repressed memory that you have got the edge of. And why our brain keeps the edge of it is for survival, because it needs to remember key information, but it also needs to repress information. And the information that it's repressing is the things that your brain thinks you can't deal with, and it actually stores it in a different part of your brain. So what happens is when you have access to and when that memory comes back, it actually feels like it's happening right now. And this is why people have, with flashbacks and things like that, they feel so real and so intense, because the memory is actually stored in a different part of your brain that when it comes back, it's like you're actually in it. So if you've got memories where you're having these kind of flashes all the time and you're thinking about them and you don't know why this memory keeps coming back up, there will most likely be something else happening in this memory, or this is just the edge of a memory. So that's one really important thing for you to understand when it comes to, I guess, identifying whether you think that there might be some repressed memories. And the second part to this is understanding repressed versus suppressed, because repressed memory it's unconscious. You can't control it. It's repressed, and it's something that your brain does as an automatic reaction to to something that it can't cope with. A suppressed memory is something that you're aware of it happened. You know it happened and you remember it, but when you think about it, you push it down and you force yourself not to think about it. So that's kind of the difference between the two. Repressed memories are most commonly the ones where you get those little edges, where you just have the snippets of information. A lot of the time, people will be able to identify whether they've also have repressed memories by, they'll often feel like they're struggling in life doesn't match what happened to them. And what I mean when I say this is that I have so many clients who come to me that say, I had a really good childhood. I don't know why. How have I been diagnosed with this severe depression and PTSD and all of these things when I don't actually have any specific memories? Like I'm having flashbacks, but I don't know what of. It's like I've been taken into the past, but I don't know where, and they're really lost and confused. This is another sign that there are some repressed memories there. So the third part, I guess, that you need to understand is why you would repress a memory. Because repressed memories are a little bit of a taboo subject, because there are some psychologists and psychiatrists out there who have written books and have done a lot of study on it and can prove that it's real and where it's stored in your brain and how it works. But there are still a lot out there that say that it's not possible, that your brain can't just forget things and you can't repress it and store it in another part of your brain that will be accessed later on in life. And what's really interesting to me is that the people who have studied it and say that it's real and that it's there, which I know from personal experience to be true, say that your repressed memories, they can't be stored in this part of your brain forever and they will come back at some point. And so a lot of people actually hold it down until they die, which is so interesting. I know a lot of people, when I've spoken about this, have said, I've heard of that. And what it is when someone is on their deathbed and they are saying goodbye to their family and friends, and sometimes they're on morphine and things like that, they'll start saying things and their family will say, okay, grandma, yeah, no, that didn't happen. Yeah, we love you, grandma. What's actually happening is a lot of the time the stories that are coming out as people are dying are actually repressed memories being unlocked from their brain, and they're unloading that information before they pass over. And so these memories are coming back to them like as flashes and as vivid and as if it's actually happening in the moment, because it's them doing that unloading process. And so I often say to my clients who feel like they have repressed memories, like, let's see if we can surface them now and heal them now so that you don't have to carry it to your deathbed. The reason this is what makes it a little bit more complicated is that the body feels safe enough right before it's about to die to let them go, which would tell me that they haven't felt safe for it to come up throughout the rest of their life. And so repressed memories are repressed for safety. And so what this, I guess, means is that whatever has happened to you at that time when it's happened to you has been something that you weren't able to comprehend, process, deal with. And what I've often found with people with repressed memory is that it is often linked to betrayal trauma. And so what betrayal trauma or betrayal trauma theory is it's a trauma, it's pretty much, it's almost self-explanatory, but it's a trauma related to a deep betrayal by someone that you love. And when we think about betrayal trauma in childhood, that is almost always with our parents. And so it's the person who is supposed to love and protect you is the person who is harming you. So anybody who has been raised in a really intensely abusive home often has what's called betrayal trauma, and they repress the memories for safety and for survival. And what this means is that if they forget and they push these memories of hurt and abuse and pain and suffering down and they repress them, and their brain does this automatically to protect them, if they suppress it and they push it down, they're able to continue to have a connection with their caregiver or their parent, which means survival. So this is why it's a safety and a survival thing, because it means that if they were to feel the reality of the situation of the abuse that they're getting daily, weekly, or whatever it is, they would very quickly have hate, resentment, fear, and disconnect from their parent. And so this mechanism of repressed memory allows them to continue to have that connection. So it's very much a survival thing. So when we start to dig into if somebody has the edge of memories, or they have indications that they have repressed memories and big gaps of their childhood missing, a lot of the time we have to get them to a point where they feel safe enough to potentially have this connection ruptured with their parents. So sometimes people come to me. I actually have a client who her memories of her abuse all surfaced after her father passed away, because it didn't feel safe for her to remember while he was alive. Because if she had have remembered, she would have had to have said something, and then her mother would have derailed her. And so her brain just knew that it wasn't safe. And as soon as he passed away, the memories came back and they were very vivid and very clear. So whenever I'm working with clients who have repressed memories, safety is the first thing. It's like, how do we get your brain to feel safe to remember? And often I kind of reverse engineer it, where it's like, okay, so the thing here is they always know, they always have an inkling because it's happened to us. So it's stored in our body, it's stored in certain comments that we say. A lot of the time people are unconscious. They'll almost give me their trauma and with the words that they say, and they'll have no idea that they've just said what they've said until I reflect it back to them and say, did you realize that you just said X, Y, Z? And they say, oh, no, that's not what I meant. And they'll retract because it's unconsciously leaking out of them. So what we have to do is we have to use that information, and I use that information to then go, okay, so what's the worst thing that could happen if this was true? What's the worst thing that could happen if you did have repressed memories of abuse? And they will say to me, well, I'd lose this connection with my parents, or I'd feel like I'm going to die, or whatever it is. Some of the answers that come out are wild and very untrue. They're like a child response coming out. And so I will often work with my clients with like, okay, if hypothetically it was true, what's the worst thing? We work on all of the beliefs that come up, all of the responses, and then over time we start to get them feeling safe enough for these memories to come back up and resurface. So when the memories do resurface, as I mentioned earlier, it feels like it's happening right now. And I had a period of time where my repressed memories were coming back. They were coming in hot. Like I was getting 3 each day, just boom, boom, boom. And as they were coming in, it was like it was happening in front of my eyes. Like I would remember it so vividly, so clearly. I could smell, I could hear everything that was happening as if I was taken back. And the theory there is that because it's stored in this part of your brain that's untouched. So they say when you continually access a memory over and over, it slowly changes over time. A repressed memory, when it comes back, is so fresh and so untouched that when you get it, it's really like it's happening again exactly as it was. And the emotions that come up as a result of that can be quite overwhelming and quite big. So this is again where that safety work needs to be done around a person feeling safe enough to see what their brain thought they couldn't handle back then. And often it's not nice things. If your brain's getting to the point where it has to repress something, it's not something nice that's going to be coming up. But on the flip side of that, most people with repressed memory suffer and struggle with no idea why. And so there is almost this relief that comes with it as well, because it's like, oh, that's why. The amount of memories that I've had them come back and then go, oh, that's why I love but also panic when I smell fresh cut grass, or that's why I can't stand this certain sound. There were so many things that were massive triggers for me that I had no idea why. And when these memories dropped in, it was just this aha moment. And I was like, I'm not just this hypersensitive, crazy person. There is memories here that absolutely link back and support these. And once I was able to process those memories and shift them, those triggers go with them as well. Everything in my life started to make sense and started to add up, and all those gaps got filled in to help me to understand how I'd got to where I'd gotten to. So if you have these big gaps, it is a sign of that repressed memory. And most of the time, like if you have big gaps, but you're loving life and you're not struggling, then I mean, there's probably another explanation to it. But if you're suffering and you're struggling and you're lost, and a lot of the time with people with betrayal trauma, they often felt trapped in their homes. They felt trapped because they couldn't leave. They loved their parents, but they wanted to leave. So they have this trapped, suffocating sort of feeling that follows them around. And again, I remember writing in my journal over and over, I just feel trapped. I feel like I'm suffocating. I feel trapped. I feel trapped. I feel trapped. And it's like there was something there that I just couldn't quite get up, and I just couldn't quite remember. And once it came back, there was this sigh of relief. And so I've talked about it in episode 1 in my life story, but the way that my memories came back was really interesting. I had a combination of repressed and suppressed memories. So I had memories where I would have flashbacks. I would see it. I would have the visual, sensory, everything happening, and I would consciously push it down. But I had at this point what was diagnosed as DID, or dissociative identity disorder, or it was formerly known as multiple personality disorder. So when I would have a flashback, I would have a coping mechanism where a different side of my personality would deal with that. I would have this specific personality that was able to push that down and deal with that. And afterwards, I would be able to flick back into this other personality who had no idea what just happened to this other person. And it was a really complex thing that my brain was doing. It's actually kind of amazing that it kept me safe and kept me functioning semi-normal for a long period of time. But I had this combination of suppressed memories that one of my personalities was suppressing, and repressed memories that were completely unconscious to me, like not in my awareness at all. So there's these two different types. And when I went into this meditation this day, my repressed memories, which were the ones that I didn't even know were there, came up, and I saw them. And when they hit me, they were so intense. But something that I haven't spoken about, and something that I think is really important to speak about, especially for women with a history like mine, which is childhood sexual abuse by their father, because I have a lot of clients who have this. Statistically, it's around 20% of Australian women have been sexually abused by their own father. It's a wild statistic. Can't believe it's a real thing, but it's through my clinic all the time. It's just so common. And so something that is really important for people to understand is that even though I had suppressed memories where I saw them and I was pushing them down, and I had repressed memories and I had this evidence and I had these clear flashbacks and I had so much information, I had other people who were there, other people who had witnessed or who I'd told, I had so much, I still questioned whether it was real. I still hunted out the truth, and I wish I had have just believed myself from the beginning and trusted myself, but I still questioned whether it was real. And this is the thing with repressed memory, because it's so taboo. So many of my clients that come to me say, am I just making it up though? I can't tell the difference if I'm making it up or if it really happened. I don't know how to tell the difference. And the easiest way to tell the difference is if a memory is a real memory, when it hits you, like you feel it in your body. You feel the emotions that you felt back in that moment. You feel the panic or the fear, or you might shake. You feel it starting to come up in your body. And you have really clear snippets of information. So it's not necessarily a narrative timeline memory. But you'll remember someone's facial reactions. You'll have smells or sounds or things that you really focus on when it comes back, versus if you're worried that you might be making it up, you'll have more of like a story that plays out with no sort of feelings that are coming up in your body. It'll just be this story. And so that's a really clear distinction to know whether when it's coming up, whether it's a real memory or something that you're trying to think about and manufacture. So, but the thing is, even when they're real, you're still going to question it. You're still going to wonder, am I making this up? Is this true? And a lot of the time that's protective. For me, that was 100% protective. It was like, nope, this can't be true. I love my dad. He's a great dad, yada, yada, yada. And I was then able to kind of try and push it down and say, no, that didn't happen. It's just me. I'm just making it up. And it got to the point, obviously, where I couldn't do that. There were so many memories. There was other people involved. It was true. But some people don't have all of that evidence. And I have a lot of clients who just go around in circles not being able to believe themselves. And so my advice for that and for those people is, once you get those memories and you know in yourself them to be true, you have to work on self-trust. You have to work on building your self-trust and your intuition and trusting what you know. And the best way to do this is to start little. Start with like something that you can stick to. So a lot of the time people with this kind of trauma don't stick to anything. They're like woozy and floozy and all over the place. So it could just be, I'm going to commit to sitting down for 90 seconds a day and just closing my eyes and focusing on my breathing. And this sounds like such a small micro thing, but if you did that and you committed to doing that every day for a week, just through that small act, you would start to build trust with yourself that you're going to follow through in things. And once you start to build that level of self-trust, you can build it up into other things that you can commit to. And it's not directly related to trusting your memories, but building a level of self-trust is going to help you to accept those memories when they do come up and when they surface. So a lot of people ask me, like, how do you get the memories to come back? And I often say to people, the more you want them, the more they'll move away from you. It's a fiddly process because, as I mentioned before, we don't want to manufacture anything. We don't want something to come out that you then question the validity of because you've been digging for it. So if you have the edge of a memory, there are techniques that I can use to go into the edge of the memory to just see if we can get any more picture. A lot of people like to try, things like hallucinogenics and breath work, like types of breath work that induce DMT, and they might try psilocybin, or there's like all different things out there that people experiment and try with that have been known to bring up repressed memories, to unlock them. But for me, with my clients, we use the edge of the memory, but we also use safety. Just making this person feel so safe. We bring in beliefs like it's safe to remember, it's safe to see, it's safe to know, I can handle it, all those sorts of things, to just ease them into allowing their brain to give them access to those memories again. So my tips on healing this would be, and how to uncover, would be this safety. It would be using the edge of memories. Also nightmares. If you're someone who struggles and suffers with this big gaps of memories, a lot of the time your nightmares will give you a pretty clear indication as to what has happened in those gap years. And we can use a technique where we can kind of go into some of these nightmares to look at what comes out and what's uncovered. But it is a really tedious process, and it's a little bit frustrating sometimes, but most people do have their memories resurface, all in different ways at different times. But the number one focus is safety. It's safe to remember, it's safe to see, it's safe to feel it. That's your mantra, that's your focus if you're wanting to bring back these repressed memories. So if you want somewhere to start, I have a trauma workshop. It's a 2-hour workshop that focuses on everything I've just spoken about. We talk about different types of trauma. We talk about complex trauma, the differences between complex trauma and lesser little t traumas. So the trauma workshop also talks about how to regulate your nervous system, all of those sorts of things. It's a really great program as like a starting point for somebody. So that's called the trauma workshop. And otherwise, the best way would be to book a session with me and we can start that process together. So thank you again for listening. If you know somebody who has big gaps in their childhood or who you think would resonate with anything I've said, please send it on.